One in five suffer.
Erase the stigma.
Brain difference is not a crime.
Mental health isn't just your problem.
It's our problem.
And now, Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave.
Welcome to Mental Health Mondays. As promised, this is I'm Marla.
And
Let me
I'm
start
Dave.
there.
Let's say it's a good place to start.
You know, well, because you know what? To be totally honest, I'm so excited for this continued conversation with our guest. Today we welcome DJ Head for episode 2 on Mental Health Monday.
And before we list the long list of credits and accolades that DJ Head is worthy of, I want to remind you that today's show is brought to you by Mental Health Mondays, where we would like for you to stop by Love and Beyond Reason's website, which is also brought to you by Loving Beyond Reason. I would add NAMI San Fernando Valley. Stop by either one of those websites, click the Mental Health Mondays tab, and donate.
And we just want to remind everybody that who our esteemed guest is today. DJ Head is one of LA's most prominent DJs. He really has spent well over a decade helping the entertainment industry give back to the LA community. He does charity work, fundraising, and even more importantly, we actually, to be honest, David and I and my family are honored to call him friend, which is kind of rare. I know that seems crazy because we've been in the industry for a long time, but he is a friend, and he's a friend based on just sincerity and truth, and we're connected in purpose. So we're going to get a little bit more into that as we go forward in episode 2 in today's show.
And if you didn't get a chance to listen to last week's show, episode 1, make sure you jump back, check that out, because as you will find out, like I affectionately refer to DJ Head as a street prophet.
What?
Yes, he actually lays it down. He's a street philosopher as well, and I love his perspective on life in general. And you too, if you weren't there last week, will soon love it as well.
We
as
agree.
we continue this conversation. We'll be right back.
We'll be back.
Help someone who is struggling by supporting the National Alliance on Mental Illness and be a part of the NAMI effect. Hope starts with you.
Hey, I was just saying during the break that I am starving. Is
David,
anyone else hungry?
I don't know.
Tony said he was hungry too, but you know you can't let your blood
First
sugar
of
get
all,
too low.
before you guys get aside from
It
yourselves
affects your
and your
thinking.
hunger, let's stick to the purpose. Welcome again, episode 2, DJ Head. Welcome to the
Absolutely.
show. Now, let me
Thank you for
just
having me.
go ahead, Head. What were you saying?
No, I was saying thank you for having me. I appreciate
Oh,
it.
yeah, absolutely. It's a no-brainer. But I can tell you this. Every time, this has only happened now, this is the second time, you can review on your own. You'll see that I'm being totally honest and upfront. Dude, you just upgraded Head to a street prophet and a...
Well,
You-
I thought he would
because you said
appreciate
you
that
were-
because, you know, his philosophy is so...
That's big from you.
Is so focused that, you know, and he's usually, based on what he does for a living, he's coming from a certain perspective that I thought that would be appropriate.
Well, I'm not saying it's not, but I'm saying I've only heard this is between this and Scott Killaby when you said, you know, you read his books and you were kind of fanboying. This is the second time I've heard you give, because you're not that dude. Like you're
I'm
very
not
analytical.
that dude. But I will say I appreciate the realness that DJ Head brings to the table. Last episode, we were discussing his concept of the address, sort of the destination, your goals in life. I wanted to ask you, Head, how much of that starts with taking perspective or stock of where you are currently. In other words, I can say that I want to go somewhere, but in order for me to be able to know where I'm going and to plot my course, for me, I have to take account into where I am right now. This is my starting point. This is where I want to go. Now let's plot the path.
Correct. A lot of it has to do with that, but I think that it more so has to do with the vehicle and what you actually care about. So it's about prioritizing your needs and your wants, right? So if I want something, it's different than I need something. My purpose is a need. It's not a want.
Mm-hmm.
And I took inventory of that, but I also took inventory of where I am mentally, what I'm willing to do, what I'm willing to sacrifice, and that goes further into the other principles of the book. I'll share with y'all off air, but um, it's more or less an auditing or a self accountability of what it is that you are internally, and what it is, and how much of that are you willing to burn up to get to where you're trying to go.
So I'll
If
tell
that
you
makes
this:
sense.
there's a little story, an anecdote, as Marlon would say. I was in the studio with George Benson, and I noticed that he had all kind of guitars. He can play acid rock. He can play anything on a guitar. And so I was like, why don't you explore some of those other things? He said that because that's not what I do. I can do these things, but who I am, what I do, I'm the best at what I do because I've chosen to discipline and cut out all these other things that I could potentially do and just focus on what I do the best. So it kind of seems like what you're saying.
Well, it's a perfect time for me to say it. I think I'm a natural born pole dancer. So I'm going to.
And I would not be mad at that.
He was like, I'm only kidding.
we
I joke.
We
joke.
So let's turn the corner and let's get a little bit more serious, because last time we were just talking general philosophy and where you were coming from, Head. But let's turn the corner.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in on this one. So one of the things, and I mentioned this earlier, you definitely hold a place personally for me and my family as a real friend. And when I just kind of observed and sat back for a minute, well, I kind of felt that was the case anyway, but then I would join several of your on air or your lives, and I started seeing you take interest in people in the community who were really struggling mentally. I mean, really struggling, like young people who were kind of lost, and Head would divert a whole world of people who are trying to get his attention. And he would go to these young people who we could clearly see. I mean, when you're 13, 14 and you're talking about, hoes and all this other stuff. And he was like, hold on, bro, how old are you? And Head would get into it. And a couple of times, because we had become friends at that point, he would call me offline and say, I just want to have somebody present who I know kind of has the same purpose and will be witness, because I don't want to call a minor. Would you join me on these calls? And I did. And
I think I walked in when you guys were on that call.
And I'm telling you, man, my heart, I don't know if I've ever told you, I think maybe, but I don't think you know how much, because of my experience with mental health, that really means to us and to me in particular, because with the struggles that my children have been through, is very public, mental health wise, they're usually dismissed and discarded and just left as damaged goods. And no one really takes the time, other than David and I, and, super immediate family, to even think to care. So Let me first say thank you, because that was genuine. That's nothing I asked for. You just jumped right in, and I've seen you do it multiple times. So what do you see in the community, and how do you see yourself plugging in to help the damaged sector of our community?
I look at outcasts as the same, no matter what you're outcast for. I'm an outcast, right? I'm a nerd. So I remember talking to one of the G homies. He's an OG Crip dude, super popping OG Crip, right? And when we were on the road one time, we got into an argument, and I was telling him, he was like, kind of like making fun of me, and I said, what's interesting is we're the same. And he was like, no, we're not the same, because I'm considered a square because I don't gangbang, right? And he was like, no. I said, we're the same. We're both outcasts. You just chose to be in your group of outcasts, but you ostracized me for doing what's right. Think about everything in our culture when it comes to, if you consider to be Black culture, hip hop, whatever it is, it's all built on counterculture. So if I love my wife, if Dave loves Marla, he's a simp, right? He don't want to deal with another woman, he's a simp. If I go to school and get good grades, I'm a nerd. Mm-hmm. If I don't want to hang out with the homies and gangbang, I'm a square. So I told him, people like you are actually the problem, not me, because I'm doing what I'm supposed to.
Have you ever been shot?
No.
Well, Marlon makes light, but how did he take that?
That's the point.
Oh, no. He didn't like it at all. And so what it is when you look at certain people, I just look at myself as an outcast, and I look at myself like I didn't have anybody to talk to about being an outcast, because the type of outcast I was, it wasn't a thing back then. I liked alternative rock music. I didn't even like hip hop in high school, or until high school. I mean, I skateboarded. I was the white nigga, right? I'm the whitewashed whatever, right? All these types of things in which I became the outcast. So I don't look at somebody who has a mental illness any different than a black kid that skateboarded in 2002.
All right, hold that thought. We got to take a break. We'll be right back.
When Dave and Marla get together, it's hot.
You may not realize it, but these words, often used to describe someone with a mental health condition, can be very harmful. In a country where 1 in 5 people are affected by a mental health condition, it's time for all of us to step up and change the conversation. Just because someone's struggle isn't obvious on the outside doesn't mean they aren't hurting on the inside. We need to see the person, not the condition. Join with me, pledge to be stigma-free.
It's time for the Mental Health Minute with Marla and Dave. It's time for the Mental Health
Also
Minute.
called affective disorders, mood disorders may involve feeling sad all the time, losing interest in important parts of life, or fluctuating between extreme happiness and extreme sadness.
Other symptoms may be irritability, changes in appetite or weight, changes in sleep patterns, difficulty concentrating.
The most common mood disorders are depression, bipolar disorder, seasonal affective disorder, or self-harm. An estimated 21.4% of U.S. adults experience any mood disorder at some time in their lives.
Again, we always ask if you or anyone that you know are experiencing any of these symptoms or distorted moods or emotional states, please seek professional help. Life can get better. This message is brought to you by NAMI San Fernando Valley and Loving Beyond Reason.
David is a thinker.
I never do anything without thinking about it first.
Marla is a feeler.
I basically wear my personality on my sleeve.
But when Marla and Dave get together, it's like a match dancing with a firecracker.
So, Marla had to interrupt you for a minute. You want to pick that back up, Marla?
Yeah, no, he was just talking about, being on an other. And so whether you're an other in mental health or whether, he was describing his own journey and in his community, just the things that DJ had liked as a young person, all these things were outside of the accepted norms, which made him a nerd in his community. And so what he's saying is he doesn't categorize difference. Different is different. Yeah. And so when he sees an outlier, whether the outlier has the label of mental illness, nerd, a simp, whatever it is, it's an outlier. And so, for him, he connects just to real no matter what and just moves to reach out. So that's what I think I heard. So
yeah. And I also think that I like authenticity too. And if somebody has a mental illness, but they're authentically themselves, I'd rather deal with that person than deal with somebody who's fraudulent in nature anyway. Mm-hmm. And so I don't look at, like you said, I'm an outcast, and I look at other outcasts as just that. Like, if you're outside of the norm because you think a different way or because you feel a different way or because you're going through something, I don't look at you any different than a black dude who skateboards in 2003. You know what I'm saying? So then also, when it comes to mental illness, people who this is a new thing, people caring about mental illness publicly. This has not been the case. Like, we were just like, oh, that person's crazy, stay the hell away from them. Like, it wasn't like, oh, well, let's find out why they're crazy. Let's figure out what triggers them. Let's figure out what. So because I don't recall having these different outlets, I always wanted to be of assistance.
So now you're kind of turning the corner into something that I was just kind of mulling around in the back of my subconscious, kind of trying to figure out how to bring it into words. But since the focus, like you said, in the black community has not usually been on mental health and recognizing a mental illness and then dealing with it in a productive way. What are some of the things that you see in some of the young people that you help that Marla said and told us about? And how do you sometimes point them toward professional help, or do you just give them practical help at the moment?
There's been a couple of times. One is when I remember I was talking to a young man. He's from New York, and he wanted me to listen to his music, and I started listening to his music. And it's just about paying attention, really.
Mm-hmm.
And I was listening to his music, and it was very dark, and it was a lot of key triggers in there. It's like, okay, I see what you're doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, well, what's up? F the music,
right?
What's up with you?
Let's get to the real conversation.
Right? Yeah. So once we started having these conversations, and I don't think I've ever even said this publicly before, but I remember he didn't want to go to therapy, and I was trying to push him in. I gave him my cell phone number, and we would talk often. He was of age. He was like 20 or 21, 19 or 20 or something like that. And I kept trying to urge him. So I bought him books. I sent him a couple of books. I bought him Charlamagne's book, the second one, because he talks about therapy and stuff like that. And he was still reluctant to go to therapy. So I called my bro Charlamagne, and I had Charlamagne talk him into going to therapy on three-way. And it was just like, because I felt like it was that extreme. Like, this kid was not well, and his household, his environment wasn't conducive to him getting help. And then there was another time I remember it was a lot. It was a lot. But there was this other time where I remember talking to someone, and they were telling me about, like, they've been having really troubled thoughts and stuff like that. And so then once somebody says that to me, it's like, okay, what's the real issue here? And then he just kept wanting me to listen to his music, and you could tell he was schizophrenic or something, because he was multiple different voices. Right. So as he's doing this, I'm like, okay, I'll listen to your music, but you have to do me a favor. And he was like, well, what? And I'll do anything you. Okay. I gave him a number, because as he was talking, I was researching which numbers in his area that he can call, 800 numbers. And I said, you call these people, you talk to these people, you give me proof that you talk to these people, I'll listen to your music.
And so, and let me just jump in. There was a very, very, very impactful young man, and he was a minor. And DJ Head, his first thing was, I need to talk to your mom. Have your mom call. No, for real. He said,
yeah, we did.
Immediately, he was like, yeah, where's your mom? So I need to speak to your parent. And so those are the things. And so I guess what I really need to say is,
we spoke to his mom.
We did. And we absolutely did together. And but so what I guess for me, and I need to remind statistically that we are, as an African American, as a black community, we are less than 1% willing to get diagnosed or to get treated, compared to our Caucasian counterparts who are 60% more willing to just deal with mental illness than we are.
And when we come back, I would love for DJ Head to really give his perspective on why that's the case. Why are we so reluctant to get the help that we need, especially when more and more the help is likely to be available? We'll be right back with a great conversation with DJ Head. Marla, I don't know why you're so resistant to the fun that this music can bring. It's not the normal. It's not the normal pole dancing thing.
No pole.
You remember how? So let's do it like we used to. What do we used to do?
It's pole time.
There you go. All right.
All
so
right,
now,
I can do that.
What's the question?
The poll question is, I'm not ready. I was not ready.
Well, you get ready for the next one.
Last week
we asked all of you and DJ Head what percentage of Americans live with a serious mental illness such as schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, or major depression. Your options were
I will remind that DJ Head.
Wait, your options were A, 1%, B, 4%, or C, 7%.
And Head said 7%. And DJ Head was wrong.
Uh-oh.
It was 4%. And you were wrong.
Players mess up.
Well, let's keep playing. So, Marla, what's the poll question for next week?
Now, this one we won't know until next week, Head, but here you always get first stab. According to the American Psychiatric Association, what percentage of Americans feel the coronavirus pandemic is having a serious impact on their mental health? 19%, 36%, or 47%?
I'm going to go with the B.
All right.
36%. So
Mark it in your books.
The question again was, according to the American Psychiatric Association, what percentage of Americans feel that the coronavirus pandemic is having a serious impact on their mental health? Your options are 19%, 36%, 47%. DJ Head.
I'm going to go with A. Let me go with A. Let me change.
Why are you changing your mind? Don't change your mind.
I don't think people have the wherewithal.
I don't think you should change your mind. I think you should stick with your first answer.
All right, I'll stick with the first.
Stay there.
We want you to actually go on any of our social medias, Loving Beyond Reason, Mental Health Mondays. The poll question will be there from time to time.
You vote.
Absolutely.
And see if you can match Head's wit. See if Head knows what he's talking about. We'll be back. All right, Dave, you had a question.
I did. So we were talking about the scarcity of those of us in the African American or the Black community. We really don't go and seek mental health help or assistance. And so, why do you think that is?
I think that's because it's not something that is taught to us. To be honest with you, like. I don't think that is something like, I mean, I know that you all have had intelligent conversations with your children about these things, but like growing up, we never had, like we had definitely people in my family where had mental illness, but it was like an unspoken thing, or it was like, oh, just pray for them. It was like this antiquated way of dealing with things. And I just don't subscribe to that anymore. Like, I don't think that's not conducive to progress. Like, we need to really get in here and diagnose things and figure out what the hell is going on, so that way we can understand the pathway to overcome it. Because then, like, and also I think that people it's not cool, right? Like, people want to be cool. People want to fit in. It's like, why? You know what I'm saying? Why do you want to fit in with the rest of these Neanderthals? Like, so I think that people like yourself, people like Charlamagne, and people who are on the forefront of mental illness and screaming mental health to the rafters, I think are doing the Lord's work.
Well, I'll put it to you like this. I grew up in a household where my dad was a mental health professional. And even though I knew all about it, it was always the other, if that makes any sense. It had nothing to do with reflecting on us or what we could potentially be dealing with. It was always what he did for work, and then he came home and it was over, if that makes any sense. So as some of his clients who needed some extra help, he would see them on the weekends, and then we would interact with them, and it was still the others versus the help that we might have needed in our own home. So that's kind of another aspect of what you were saying.
I think it runs rampant too, and sorry not to cut you off. I think it runs rampant too in the Black and the brown community, because it's not something that we look at as normal. And I hate normalized. I hate the overutilization of normalized, but it's the truth. It's not normal. It's abnormal for people to seek help in the Black and brown community. And even before before I told Miss Marla I would do the show, I remember I've been reaching out to a couple of therapists and stuff like that. Not for myself, but I want to have on my show. Like Dr. Glenna is a good friend of mine. I've known her 15 plus years, a PhD, and she's a therapist. I just reached out to another woman named Dr. Leslie. She's a Mexican, a Latin woman, and she specializes in Latinx and bilingual and LGBTQ. And I think like these conversations need to be had on a mass platform, so that way we can understand it.
We're gonna give you also Dr. Allie Hicks. Write that down and look that up on your Instagram. But I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna make a big statement right here, and I said it before, but it's probably gonna resonate more. The DJ Head is on. We have learned that it is stress and trauma that is the biggest fracturing or triggering part of mental illness. Black people in the United States of America are born traumatized. Now, I don't know how
Facts.
better I can say that, but I'm not even trying to be
Facts.
funny anymore. Like you when you came out, you were walking uphill. So
try
I
growing up. Try growing up in the hood. It's real.
And I'm saying, and I wrote
It's real.
I wrote about it because even though people consider me a child of affluence, my dad started his major league career as a Negro baseball player. He had to live in a different hotel. I remember being a child at I don't like to call names, even though it's not a big story, but at a prominent white players' houses. If I said their name, you know who they were. And I was an older child in the game, and I remember at a barbecue walking up, and a group of white ball players were telling black jokes, and saw me and stopped. And I heard the beginning of the joke, and I walked up, and I was like, oh. It was the first time I remember. Oh,
You're the
I'm
other.
black.
Yeah, yeah.
They're
So
stopping because of me. So you're traumatized. In other words, you're not shielded by your station in life. If your skin is black and you live in the United States of America, I would say this, to be honest, this is something that we really need to band together and understand our place and our value, because there's a lot of trauma in our community just by the nature of who we are.
yeah, and we don't usually have access to the same opportunities. And people say they take that lightly. Some people shoot that down. And when you say it that way, it doesn't even seem like a deep thing. But our daughter went to Syracuse. I know even with my dad being a professional, if I said, "Hey, Dad, I want you to give me $400,000 to go to college," it wouldn't even been a joke. It just wasn't available.
It was just hell no.
It just wasn't
No.
available. So, I
No.
mean, these opportunities, they just don't exist for most people in the brown and black community. And so on top of all those things, here's another little anecdote. We had a friend who was like, "Oh, why do black people spank their kids?" And I had to think about
Tell
that
me, it
for a
reminded
minute.
her of slavery. She was crying at a baseball park, and I almost punched her in the face.
So trying
I was so
to
mad.
control our reaction to somebody who did not experience slavery, to trying to make that, that put that on the same level. So, but at the same time, I had to think about that for a minute, and I said, well, it's horrible that most black people have to choose between one bad thing, and that's spanking your kids, and a worse thing, that your kids don't understand that authority is real. Because if my kid disregards what a policeman says, he might not come back alive. He might not get home that night. So it's better for me to put the fear of God in him, unfortunately, for authority. I mean, that's just the reality that we grew up in and still
safety.
do.
Well, we're unfortunately, our time flies here fast. When we come back from the break, we'll hear closing words from DJ Head and Dave and myself. Man, my gratitude is beyond words. We'll be right back.
Bad.
Worthless.
Don't trust them. They'll hurt you. You're worthless.
It's pointless.
When the pain of schizophrenia meets hope, everything can change. Help someone who is struggling by supporting the National Alliance on Mental Illness and be a part of the NAMI effect. Hope starts with you.
It's raw, real, and unfiltered.
Well, we're out of time, and that's unfortunate. But it is fortunate that DJ Head had time to spend with us. Man, we just appreciate
Thank you.
who you are. I do, and I know
Thank
we
you.
do. And thank you for becoming a friend of Mental Health Monday. Anytime, we appreciate your insight, your transparency, and your wisdom. So if we'll
Thank
let you,
you. I appreciate you.
we'll let you take us out of here on our final episode.
Mental health is no different than anything else that's considered abnormal. Stop being afraid to be different.
That's dope.
Embrace it and do what it takes to thrive with it. That's really good advice.
All right, that's it.
because the opportunity to thrive is real.
All right, I'm upgrading. I'm not going to be a pole dancer. I'm going to be a stripper. I'm going to do it. Thanks, DJ. Hey, this is it. This is the last show. Just kidding. He was like, "Oh my God, no!" You know what? Again, our voices combined create a bigger net. We need to bind together because this is something that is not you or me, it's us. And this whole platform is meant so you don't have to feel alone. We don't want you to feel alone.
And
We're
using
here.
DJ Head's semantic, the sooner you find your address, the sooner you can get your journey started. So there you go. Let's get going, everybody.
We'll be looking for that book.
Indeed. Thank you, DJ Head.
Thank you.
Bye.